welcome everyone to our second lunch and learn session for the School of Library and Information Science this fall. My name is Heather Burke. I'm a GA with the SLIS office here, and I am so happy to be here again in room 303. We have some online guests as well who will be joining us for the discussion, and we'll go ahead and introduce our fabulous panel of presenters.
Thank you, Heather. First of all, I would like to thank our three presenters. They've all driven in quite a distance to be here today, so I want to thank them very much for that. Starting closest to me, we have Sarah Perlmutter. She's a graduate of UK SLIS, and she's currently with EBSCO. In the middle, we have Jen Dupree, who is with SkyRiver. She's also a graduate of UK SLIS. And on the far right is Chris Illichmann. She works with Advanced, and she got her degree from Wayne State.
Love me anyways.
I just want to make sure I had the right school. But they're going to talk a little bit about alternative career paths for librarians. And to start, I thought if you all could just kind of introduce yourself and do kind of a little rundown for how you got here today and what kind of led you. I know a couple of you made comments about librarianship kind of fell into your lap, and perhaps these positions kind of fell out of the sky as well. So I just kind of talk in general, and then we'll have time for questions at the end as well.
Sir? Sure. My name is Christine Illichmann. You can call me Chris. I'm a graduate of Wayne State, as Will said. I currently work for Advanced Solutions, but as the others have said, we were talking about previously, my path to library science was kind of different. So I started out with a business degree and a sports administration degree, and then when I graduated, I went to work part-time at the library in my hometown as a clerk. And then after a while, my boss said, you should really consider becoming a librarian. I was like, no, you know, but never mind you, I kept staying on as a clerk. And I loved it, so I ultimately got a scholarship to attend Wayne State. And after my time at Wayne State, I went on to become an academic library director at a small theological library in Michigan. And then from there, one day I was at conference presenting a poster session about something, and I happened to meet the wife of a vendor, and she happened to be walking through and looking at my presentation, and she introduced me to my future boss, and one day he needed somebody to work and help him with customer care, and specifically dealing with libraries. And I said, okay, sure, I'll take it. So kind of a really weird path. You know, one minute you're at conference presenting a poster about teen usage of libraries, and the next thing you know, you're working in Indianapolis as a library vendor. So.
Okay, well, I'm Jennifer Dupree. I graduated from UK SLIS in 2011, spring 2011. And prior to coming to UK, I had been in the library side on a vendor working for Gale. I worked for them for over a decade, so when I came to library school, I was already pretty familiar with a lot of library things. Got the degree here. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to actually be a librarian. Turns out I'm not. I work for a vendor called SkyRiver. It's a startup company, and we sell cataloging software for libraries. It also kind of fell on my lap. I had been working for for Dean O'Hare here at UK, moved back to my hometown of Detroit, and just as I decided maybe I should look for work, I saw an email on the LibJobs listserv looking for someone who pretty much had my exact resume. So I got in touch, and here I am, and I represent SkyRiver to kind of the middle of the country. So Kentucky is part of my territory.
I'm Sarah Perlmutter, graduated from library school here in 2007. Had moved to Kentucky, was looking for a job, and got a part-time job in my public library out in Bourbon County. And the library director encouraged me to go to graduate school and get my library degree, and I kind of scoffed at him for a couple years and then actually came. And very happy that I did. While I was a GA over at Young Library, I was searching the job postings, and most of the things that appealed to me were on the SLA website. Found a job posting for EBSCO with the Chicago office and applied, and kind of had a couple interviews. And then actually Dr. Kerrigan's class for collection development brought in Carolyn Cavanaugh, who had was the account services manager here in Kentucky. And I went up to her and introduced myself afterward and just said, you know, I've applied for a job with EBSCO. I'm really excited about the opportunity. And she's like, oh, well, keep in touch with me. You know, if you ever need anything, let us know. So I get the job, moved to Chicago. I'm there 6 months, and I run into her at a conference. And I said, I don't know if you remember me. You know, we talked back in April. She's like, oh, of course I do, and I'm going to be retiring next year. Would you like my job? I said, yes, that would be fabulous. Thank you. So I was really looking for an opportunity to come back to Kentucky. And so, like she said, she retired, and in July, literally a year to the date that I moved to Chicago, I came back to Kentucky and took over her job. And the original position I had with EBSCO was working in e-resources. I was the electronic resource account development manager, which basically meant I understood all of the different publisher offerings and pushed them out to our sales reps, worked with our librarians to help them understand how they could move their collection from print to online, and then also help manage the process in the office of how we place those orders, because it's different from the print world. And then the job here was actually required an MLS, and as an account services manager, you're essentially doing a high level of customer service, triaging, problem solving, training. So the idea being you have the degree of the people that you're calling on, so you have some credibility, but also can understand their side of their work. My sales rep then left a couple years after that, and so I was doing both sales and service for a number of years, and now I'm just doing sales. So it's kind of my very long, but I've had a different job with EBSCO every year, but I really enjoy it.
So can you also talk a little bit about, you were talking about first time home in 2 weeks, kind of what the general schedule is for each of you, and the things that appeal to you about that, and the things that are maybe some drawbacks?
Absolutely. Well, let's see. I didn't really clarify what I do at Advanced. I'm the marketing coordinator, but I also do a lot with trade shows. So I've probably been to 10 trade shows this year so far, many state and also national. So I just was in Illinois for 3 or 4 days a couple of weeks ago, and then in 2 weeks I'll be at the New York Library Association. I'll be in New York for almost a week. And then I'll be going to the Indiana Library Federation show, and then I'll be going up to Chicago for 1 day. I go through long spurts of lots of travel because this is state season time, like state shows, and then I'll have long periods of time where I'm just in the office. And so it's nice to be able to do that. I like the adventure of traveling, but then there are times you're like, I don't want to be an American Airlines top flyer. So there's that side to it. But you know, the other side, that plus side, is that you do get to travel extensively, and then you get to see trends that are happening nationally because you are stopping it. I mean, you're seeing every single state sometimes, and you're really learning a lot because you're at the ground level of that state institution. So yeah, the schedule can be hectic, but it really just depends on that time of year.
I'm a little bit different because I go directly into libraries, and one of the things I love is that I do get to see different libraries every day. So I get to see how they work, how they look, and I'm not that I'd get bored working in a library, but I do love being able to have that variety and see all the different things. I also do trade shows. I was actually at ILA in Illinois. We didn't even know we were there together. So that's a great place to talk about your product and meet librarians and see what kind of trends, like you said, they're exciting times at the trade shows or conferences because the librarians are coming from their sessions where they've just learned something fantastic and they're really excited and they're talking to you about it. And I love working for a vendor. I'm very happy to be working for a vendor because I feel that I get that opportunity to keep on the cutting edge, practice my library skills, and have the advantage of traveling and seeing different libraries. Now on the other side of it is the travel. I've been in Illinois, now I'm here, next week I'm in Alabama. I don't mind it yet. It's only been 3 months with this particular company, but it's to me it's exciting. And then I work from home on the days when I'm not traveling, so it's a little more relaxing than having to, I don't have to get dressed and put my makeup on. You know, I work with my cat on my lap, so it's a pretty sweet deal, in my opinion.
I would say mine mirrors very closely what it is that Jen does. I cover 5.5 states, and I make my own schedule. We're actually based in Birmingham, Alabama, but I live here in Louisville, so I don't go to an office anymore either. I'm based out of my home, which is fabulous. But I essentially make my own schedule, so I'll pick, say I need to be in Nashville and see every customer or prospect that we have there. So I'm usually on the road 4 to 5 days a week, every week. It's just kind of what I do, and then you sprinkle in conferences and other meetings and around there. But I participate in all of our state shows nationally. I'm a member of NASIG, which is the North American Serials Interest Group, and I'm involved in the conference planning for that. So just a lot of different opportunities to be able to be out. Like Jen said, I love being in a different place every day. That is really interesting to me. Meeting new people all the time, seeing all different kinds of libraries, all different kinds of campuses. So it's the variety is what appeals to me, and I'm sure there'll be a day I just cannot bring myself to get back in the car, and that will be the day it's time to do something else. But I haven't hit that place yet.
One of the beautiful things is, as librarians, we know about audiobooks
Yes.
and overdrive. You can just download them right in your car, and you've got an ebook for your 6-hour trip. So take advantage of the library services as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But I think probably one of the best things is being the intermediary. You have a certain level of expertise and knowledge that you're bringing to librarians, but then it's a two-way street. You're really also understanding their needs and what's happening in their workplace and in their libraries, and bringing that back to the company to help tailor our services to what it is that, they're on the front lines. We can sell anything, but, you're the ones who use it is what my line always is.
So you're kind of getting into a little bit, but what skills from library school do you use in your jobs?
I still use the reference interview daily. I use the reference interview constantly. And anything that I learned in instructional design coursework, I've used and drawn upon extensively. And a lot of my experience just in working with people and working in libraries and understanding their issues and concerns. When a customer calls, I think it's that idea that being librarians, when we call a customer, we can say, "Are you on desk right now? Can you even handle this phone call?" And and they're so appreciative of that. So kind of that, there's still that need to draw information out of people as you would in a public environment, which is right an academic environment, but also that idea of understanding their environment as well. So, but I mean, on the other hand, working in an office environment wasn't what I had understood the library world to be. I always thought that I was going to be working at a reference desk and doing readers advisory and things, and so that is a very different sort of thing. I mean, I sit a lot of my day. I'm on my computer a lot of the day, so that's the other side of that. So.
I am drawing from 655, which I took with Dr. Chan my first semester. Thank goodness I took that class. We do cataloging, and that is just not my area of expertise at all. I took that class kind of it was the only in-person one that semester that I had time for. So glad. I am living and breathing MARC records right now, and RDA and AACR2R, and at least I had that basic from 655, so I wasn't going into this job completely clueless. And I'm learning so much. I love seeing now how the bit that I learned here at school is used actually in the real world. Mm-hmm. Actually seeing how folks use the software to create their MARC records, where they get them from originally, how they add their local codes to them, how it gets into the library catalog so the patrons can search. It's kind of put everything together for me. I've also, Professor Kerrigan's advanced management course was fantastic because there's a lot of talk about budgeting, just learning how library decisions are made, the setup with the board of directors and the directors has helped a lot because we have to work through those channels a lot as we're working with people and they're We're asking them to spend money with us. It's very important to know what that means to them, and where they have to go when they say, well, I'm going to have to take this to my administration. I know what that means, and I'm able to, even in some cases, help them through that process. So I do draw a lot on what I learned in school here.
My approach to library school might have been a little bit different. I wanted to take one class in every discipline just because I kind of had a general sense of what I thought I wanted to do. So there are so many times when I'm glad I took cataloging, I'm glad I took the technology classes, I'm glad I had the research methods reference, because I draw on all of it really from my job. But I think the best part about all of it that I use is really just being able to disseminate information and to understand the organization of information outside of the specifics. So I can sit down with the customer and kind of do our reference interview, but then also just be able to understand the big picture and listen to people and pick out the parts that they need. And so I think maybe just the graduate degree in general, having the further training as far as being able to think critically and communicate well was probably the best part that I pulled out of library school. I think too, my graduate assistant experience was extraordinarily helpful. I was a GA with the reference desk at Young, and having that to roll into understanding databases and e-resources was very helpful. So.
Well, and like you said too, just having the degree, it lends us some credibility and allows us to engage with our customers in ways that other reps, other people that call on them can't do. And they really appreciate that a lot.
It's major street cred.
It is.
I mean, people look at you when you're at a conference and someone walks up to you and they recognize that you're their peer, and you have on your badge librarian. You can get a ribbon that says librarian like you can for any committee, and it just, they light up and they want to engage with you because they understand that you have some comprehension of what they go through on a day-to-day basis.
And I think it shows that we have a passion for what they do too. We didn't just fall into these sales jobs selling to libraries. We're working with libraries now because we want to. And I think that does make a difference. If I were on the other side of the desk and a rep came in who had an MLS, I think I'd just be more comfortable knowing that they're doing this because this is what they believe in. And I know for me it's true. I do believe in what I sell. I believe in my product, my company, and I believe in libraries. So every day I get up and it's like a fabulous new opportunity to talk about it.
I agree. Well said.
Thank you.
I have a question for you all. Chris, you mentioned you also have a business background. I'm wondering, in your fields where you're working now, do you see many people with an LIS background or related degree, or do you see maybe more business, or is it a mix? Can you kind of comment on that?
I see it shifting more towards folks who have a librarianship background. I guess I've been in the vendor industry for like 4 years now, but it seems like as more folks are graduating from library school, that they're kind of funneling into that field. So I would say, 5 or 10 years ago, or probably closer to 10 years ago, there were fewer people in the industry that had actual library backgrounds, and now you're seeing, I think, not that they weren't there, but there's a vastly increased amount. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but that's what it seems to me.
Do you think that has anything to do with the changing coursework that library schools are taking? I mean, there's a lot more of the information science side of the equation, the students coming out.
I do, because I think that concept of information science and actual database management and more tech, especially, and then you had mentioned the management coursework as well, I think is really playing into that heavily, because there wasn't as much management coursework or even information management previously. So yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think when I worked at Gale, I started there in 1996, and I was an editor. No one there was, librarian. But as I moved up into product development and then sales, there were MLS folks scattered throughout, which was fantastic. I wasn't one. I was able to speak the language. People thought I had it, which was fantastic. But having gone from that to getting my degree to working for SkyRiver, where everyone, almost everyone there has their MLS, I noticed the difference in like the level of detail and the level of conversation I can have with the customers. And I think there are more, and I think part of it is too the economy. You know, libraries, in my experience, the libraries didn't, it took a little longer for them to be affected by the recession, and it's gonna take them a little longer to be affected by the upswing. Because they're just, you know, as the taxes catch up and funding catches up. Vendors now though, as the economy's going on an upswing, we're diving in. So I think there might be more opportunities on the vendor side, whether you're in sales or doing product development, database creation, content management for the vendors. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for recent library graduates, maybe more than you'll find in libraries. And it's a great way to use your degree.
I think the direction most libraries, at least in an academic setting, most libraries are heading with movement to, might still have subscriptions, but are definitely buying online subscriptions, buying databases, and now with the whole world of discovery tools and, you know, all the technology is becoming so much more advanced. And at least on the EBSCO side of things, I know for our EBSCO publishing division, we have over 100 open technology positions, some of which then might not necessarily require an MLS, but that experience and expertise would be most welcome. Because I think when you start, there needs to be some kind of melding of the technology and the library side, so that we are developing all of these services and products for libraries, but we still need people who understand the library world and can think about how what that means for library processes. So I think there's more and more room for MLS people with that degree on the technology side or on the vendor side, because we need both sides of the brain, if you will, to be able to make those products work and to be able to implement them and to be able to market them effectively to libraries.
And libraries, I think, are changing so quickly that it's really hard for somebody who's on the outside of library land to look in and say, oh yeah, I can create a product that will help you, or yeah, I know how to, I can just, you know, hit the ground and show you exactly what you need to do. They can't, because, I mean, let's face it, we work in a really niche industry all in all. I mean, and so when you have these graduates from these MLS programs, they can go into a vendor and say, yeah, I understand how libraries work, and this is why your product might work, why it might not work. And I think that's something that somebody who doesn't necessarily have an MLIS or hasn't worked extensively in libraries, I don't think they could do that. And as we change rapidly, I think we are the only ones who can help our industry to expand and have new products.
Well, even internally on our side, you know, we have, I'd say probably 40 to 50% of people within EBSCO have an MLS. And even when we release new products or release new processes in the office, you know, the product people can dream up just about anything, which is wonderful. But then we're like, well, excuse me, did you think about how this is going to integrate into the catalog? You know, so even internally, having, being able to bring that forward and kind of be an advocate of the library side of things is important. So it's happening both customer-facing and within the company as well.
My company was actually, it's a startup company, about 3 years old, and it was started by folks working for Innovative Interfaces, which is an ILS company, but librarians in that company working with librarians out in libraries who said, you know, we need an option for cataloging. Is there something better out there? And they thought, well, we maybe could develop that. And that's where we had both sides of the picture, the business side, the relationships, but the knowledge of what librarians need. And that's why we've been successful. Well, one of the reasons we've been successful for 3 years is that we built our product based on what libraries were doing right now and what they needed. And we're still building our product based on that. And non-librarian folks, business people couldn't have come in and built SkyRiver the way that the company has been built by librarians.
There's definitely a new culture, I think, within the vendor world of that startup mentality, and there's like an entrepreneurial vibe, and you know, you go to conferences and there's lots of small booths with new companies out there, you know, and that's really new and refreshing, I think, to see. And it's kind of, you know, it's kind of cool that we're finally jumping onto that entrepreneurial mindset of like, okay, let's start new companies to try to see if we can fit these new needs that we have. So.
Jan, do you have any openings for a broken down old database program?
So now you talked a little bit about there'll come that day when you get in the car and you say, I can't do this anymore. So when when we all get tired of particular positions at times, but fast forward a little bit, and if you're not in your current position, staying with a vendor, going back to the real library world, what do you kind of think your future might hold? And what are you learning now in your current positions that will help you go forward?
I can start.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll go back to work in a library. I thought about volunteering. My schedule would be very weird because I couldn't commit to times, but I would like to, be in a public library. I worked for Lexington Public Library while I was here getting my degree, and I loved it, and I'd love to keep that up. But as for working in one, after going to a different library every day, I don't know if I could do that. My ultimate goal is to get into sales management. And I hope to stay with SkyRiver because I love the company, and as we grow, there might be a need for that additional level within the company, and that would be still a lot of travel, I think, but with a little more control, maybe deciding when to travel with other reps. So for me, I don't see myself getting burnt out for a long time because, like Sarah said, I get to create my own schedule. I am on the road a lot because I want to work with libraries and talk to them and make money, but if I need a week off, it's in my control to do that and spend a week at home. I don't see myself getting that tired of it, honestly.
This is kind of my $1 million question right now, because I'm really starting to look into the future and decide what I want to do next. I love what I do. I really, really enjoy having a variety of different places and people that I'm seeing on it, and I feel useful. And I think that for me is one of the things that appealed to me about librarianship. I really wanted to be of use to people. My goal when I came to library school was to be a director of a public library. And I don't think that would be too far off given the wide variety of skills and experience that I've had working for a vendor. I don't know how welcome that would be on the library side to kind of come off the road and into that type of position. So all of those are unknowns, but yeah, I think sales management sounds interesting. There's lots of things that sound interesting. I don't know what it is, but I think that's what's great about working for a vendor is that it really opens a lot of doors. I mean, I was the most reluctant salesperson I know. I would never be a salesperson. It was like stigma, And here I am, and I really like it, and I'm good at it. And I never would have known that about myself unless I had taken this job. So, there's lots of options, I think, but eventually just toning down the travel, I think would be nice, finding a little bit more balance. But if I could stay in my job and do that, I would.
Well, one thing I like about working at Advanced is that it's very casual. So this is dressing up for me. I feel very dressed up today. And so, for me, finding a vendor that would be, and I think you guys would agree, there are some vendors that are really sure, as long as you get your stuff done, that's all we care about, and you can wear shorts and hell, bring in your dog, that's fine. Can I say that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And so, they don't care. And then there's, other vendors that are like, hey, you better be here at the 60-hour work week. This is really serious. And, so I think if I found another vendor that, was that culture that I was used to, then I would, consider going back to that. I've, seen some of these other library startups and said, I think I could do that. I could use my business background to start my own company that would fulfill a niche within the library world. And I would go back to public libraries in a heartbeat. I loved dealing with patrons and helping them. And I guess the last option is that I've been looking into eventually someday getting a PhD and focusing on management of libraries, because I think we need more coursework for library management. And so, you know, we need to kind of get that lesson out there that, hey, we need to start thinking about ourselves as business people. So yeah, but I like working in the vendor world, so, you know, if it comes that someday though, then I've got, you know, 4 different paths that I'm willing to look at, so.
I have a question. Do you all have specific positions in your companies that are MLS related but do not require travel?
Well, I can speak for SkyRiver. The offices are in Emeryville, California, which is in the Bay Area, and we've got 3 now, actually, people working in operations there. So they're making sure that everything works. They're interacting with our customers, setting up the relationship between SkyRiver and the ILS. They're MLS people, and they work out of the office every day. And at Gale, we had product managers who were in the office every day, you know, developing products and communicating with librarians, but not necessarily traveling a lot. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for that.
I think an MLS is always welcome. It's not required of any internal positions, but I think it gives you an edge and just helps you fully flesh out whatever position you have better. The positions that require the MLS do require about 50% travel, but that's really the only one I can think of. But I know some of our operations people, some of our customer service people have gone to get their library degree because they thought it would help them better connect with customers in their job.
Most of our jobs, anyone in our company that has an MLIS travels at least a little bit, but we're starting to look at having tier 2 support team members who are MLIS grads, so they would be the people that would take the really urgent technical questions, and they would mostly stay. I think one thing to keep in mind is if you're interested in working for a vendor, you have to be willing to travel at least once a year and sometimes twice a year. So if it's a PLA year and you're working for a vendor that helps PLA or, you know, caters to PLA, you should be ready to go to ALA or PLA. Not because it's necessarily required, not because you necessarily would do it every year, but because, you know, if you want to stay current in the industry and you have a good boss, they're going to say, you're going to conference this year, and when you're not in the booth, you're going to be in sessions. So I think it's something that you have to anticipate, but it's like 3 or 4 days, and you get to go to places like Vegas, and that's fun travel. Yes. Yeah.
Well, let me see if I can read this. Oh, if someone is currently in the program and thinks that they're interested in possibly working for a vendor, are there things that you would suggest that they do while they're in the program to better prepare themselves?
No, not necessarily. I mean, not from a coursework perspective. I would say I'd be happy, and I'm sure these ladies would as well, contact one of us, talk to us if you want to get more information. I think the biggest thing that I'm glad I did when I was in the program outside of going to class every day was really talking to people who were doing other kinds of jobs that I thought I might be interested in. So, you know, I had a cataloging internship at VCTCS. You know, I worked at the reference desk. I talked to people who work for vendors just to kind of get a lay of the land and understand what that meant. So I think just ask the questions. You know, you can ride with us for a day if you really want to, or, you know, but be curious, just ask questions. But nothing from a coursework standpoint.
I agree. I mean, you ultimately got your job because you talked to a speaker in one of your classes. So be involved, talk to people, don't be afraid. It's a little different for me because I already had the vendor background, so my resume was already complete for that when I graduated here. But it's really about talking to people and know your vendors, you know, keep tabs on what they're doing, look at their job postings, and get in touch with people you know 3 people now. Vendors, so.
Well, I'll do a soft sales pitch. There's a group of us, and I just suck these 2 into it too. There's a group of us who have MLISs that are interested in talking about, you know, what happens if you don't want to become a traditional librarian, and we're working on starting a blog. We have not published the blog live yet, but if you find me on LinkedIn or you get my business card and, you know, give me your information, I'll send you the announcement when we announce it. We're going to announce it on the listservs as well. So we're hoping that will be a good resource for folks who are interested in in vendor-related careers, and not just vendor-related, but we also have grant researchers. We have folks who are managing major donations for large universities, so all sorts of backgrounds. I guess I just have to reiterate what they just said. I mean, the first part is go to any major national trade show website, look at the vendor or exhibitor list, and just start clicking through all of the websites for all of those vendors. I mean, they give you a whole list of everybody's going to present, and just start looking through and seeing what jobs they have open and see what's trending for them in terms of products, and that'll just keep you up to date on the industry. And I think that idea of networking, you know, I think people are really shy about networking, but I mean, if it's for your job, if your career is based on your future, then you will find the will to say hello. I mean, you know, so I think that's really important. It does all come down to connections and just maintaining those connections once you've met people.
Well, you mentioned going to the trade show websites and seeing the exhibitors, but go to the trade show
Mm-hmm.
and walk around the exhibit hall.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, we're bored to death.
Unless
Unless
it's
it's
tell anybody that.
well, it's I'm telling the secrets now, but you know, unless it's like there's a launch happening right outside your booth and people are coming for the food, it's unlikely that, which is exactly how we
That
get
is so
traffic
true,
in LA
yeah.
if you're right in the
Yeah, we
hallway.
have a
But
little table in front
yeah,
of us too,
yeah. But we'd be happy. Come by, talk to us. Say you're a student, say you're a recent graduate, and we'll sit there and chew the fat with you as long as you want, probably. Plus, it looks like we're busy, and then like, other librarians come in. Well, that looks like
Yeah.
an important booth, so
Yeah.
please do that. Yeah.
And you can get an exhibitors only badge for
Yes.
free. I know our parent company, Demco, offers free ones. I don't know if that's good,
Yeah.
but every
Mhm.
major trade show, they have something on their website. You can get a free pass from them just for exhibitors.
I was just going to say, I think the thing that appealed to me the most about getting the degree was that it opens lots of doors. You have the ability to focus in and say, I want to be a cataloger, I want to do reference, whatever you wish. But the MLS itself, you can walk into a vendor, you can walk into all different kinds of places, and just having that credential gets your foot in the door. Then once you get your foot in the door, at least from a vendor side, as you look at the three of us, what we do, yes, we're all sales, but I'm speaking specifically always about e-journals and print resources and databases, so more subscription services, cataloging, marketing. So even if you have something that's of interest to you outside of your MLS, you can kind of pool those skills and interests together to use it in all different ways, just even in the vendor world. So.
Questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
When Sarah was new to her gig, she and I talked via email about the amount of travel.
Yeah.
So this morning, I asked her, still traveling quite a bit? And I think it's one thing to say, I travel quite a bit in my job, but give everyone the benefit of your range of weekly miles in the car.
I don't want to scare anybody off.
Sarah, you have to be honest.
I drive about 60,000 miles a year, and then I cover 5.5 states, so I now also get to fly, so I'm racking up all the frequent flyer miles as well. But I'm in the car. Well, the way it works for me is I call in every kind of library, so public, hospital, medical, law, academic, you name it. If it says library over the door, you're going to see me at some point. So I kind of crawl my territory in a very different way. So that's why I have the opportunity to spend lots of time in my car. But that's also by choice. I mean, I don't know. I think part of what I love and the way that I kind of integrate myself into a state, into a territory, is really just showing up. I think so many people are grateful that you come. You've spent the time and the energy to show up, and so they don't forget that. Not a lot of vendors. That's part of being customer facing is so satisfying because they remember you and you start to know their children and all kinds of things. So that relationship is what makes it so great. So to me that makes the 60,000 miles a year well worth it. But yeah, that's true.
Well, may I ask another question?
Certainly.
I'd like each of you to address this. How is your performance measured in your job?
Speaking of management issues.
Chris, would you start?
Well, I predominantly work in marketing, and so mine is based on really just overall statistics of how many pieces did I send out and what was the response rate for those, how many leads then was sales able to generate from the marketing that I was able to generate the pieces and the content. I also do a lot of our blogging and social media. So the content of the quality of the content that I create is measured in a way. So as long as website statistics keep going up and people keep bringing back postcards and saying, hey, I saw this postcard that you sent out for the trade show, and that person becomes a lead, and that's kind of what I'm measured against. So I don't necessarily have a quota to meet or anything, but I measured on how well I help the sales team bring in folks.
I'm mad at you for asking this question because my boss is going to watch this and think, oh, I should be measuring that. And I'm so happy because right now she doesn't. I know, it's a startup company and we're just interested in getting new customers. So we don't have quotas. I don't have metrics for how many customers I have to see in a week. She trusts us as adults and responsible professionals. So I do get out there a lot. I personally measure because I get paid on sales, so my wallet is measured by that. But other sales shops I know of and working for Gale, we had annual quotas as well as number of visits or phone calls that you had to make in a week.
Let me interrupt. You say that your remuneration is influenced by sales.
Yes.
Okay. I just want the audience to hear that.
Yeah. No. I mean.
Influenced or total?
No. I have a base salary. Which is livable, and then I get a percentage of what I sell. And being a startup company, we're not flush with money, so it's a very fair, and it's to me it's a perfect package. But it was the same when I worked at Gale. It's the same that I know for other sales reps. You have a base salary, you get benefits. When you're on the road, you get paid mileage, as you're driving. But there's obviously motivation there for you to sell.
Similar. I have a base salary that I essentially live off of, and then we have a very complex commission structure. So there are a number of calls I have to make per week. I have to see customers X amount of times per year. We're paid on retention, so how much business we kept, as well as new business that comes in, as well as product sales. So, the thing that I like particularly well about my job is my wallet is directly affected by how hard I work every year.
The reason I ask that question is because if there is such a thing as the typical person drawn to an MLS program, of course it's going to be she, so I can use that pronoun. She may find this an alien culture, and when considering non-library job careers, a person needs to be aware of that.
Absolutely.
You answered in exactly the way I would have expected, but a person has to be prepared for that culture.
They do, but let me say this. You said, I never saw myself in sales. We think of like used car salesmen, and that's this impression you have of salespeople, but one of the reasons I love doing this is because I don't feel like I'm selling. I feel like I'm having conversations with people who have the same interests and backgrounds that I do, and we're talking about the best ways to make things happen, and it's very exciting. And also the car time. I'm a huge introvert. I can be very outgoing when I need to be, but I need time by myself, and that car time gives that to me.
Definitely.
You got a couple hours that you're on the freeway and you're just by yourself, and then you're recharged to go on to the next meeting. So for me, it's a good balance of sharing my passions and my skills, but also having that time to myself, and just revamping and I'm a librarian. I feel like I'm a librarian. I'm working with several libraries all the time.
I will say, I agree, and I think that's one of the reasons I was reluctant to move into sales, because I didn't really understand. I had never been in a sales environment. I'd never been in a business environment, really. My original jobs with those were all salary, and so moving into that was kind of scary, but well worth it and very, very rewarding. So I wouldn't say it's a deterrent to move into the sales world, but.
at Advanced, we say that our sales culture is one of consultation. And so if, and I was not there at the time, but in the past, people who were trying to be this kind of hard sales, you know, like that traditional used car sales guy you think of, they were let go. So it was that you're a consultant. If they want your help, then you help them, and you give them as much help as you can. When they say no, I don't want your product, you stop. You say, well, can I still email you a couple times a year just to check in, or can we just put you on our newsletter? That's fine, but don't push it. They've asked you not to. Be respectful of that boundary, because that was my concern. You know, and I guess the other part of it too is that if you're a highly social person and you enjoy making new relationships, then maybe the vendor world is more appropriate or more likely to be your path. Because I find that a lot of our sales are based on the connections I've made at conferences. So people will say, oh, I know Chris, I trust her, you know, she knows about my kids. So when she says to me, hey, let me show you this new room reservation product we have, you know, let me introduce you to Claudia, our sales rep, they know that I'm truly not out to scam them. I want to make their job easier. And so that relationship building is very crucial as well. So. But I do see your point about that as well. It's if it's foreign to you, it's an interesting thing to get into. So.
Is part of your salary incentive based?
No.
You're strictly salary.
Right, I'm strictly salary, and that's mostly because I work in the marketing aspect of things. So, but my boss has always said that if I ever land a sale, or then I'll get commission. But I'm like, that's all right. Claudia can help them.
What advice would you give librarians to help them work better with you all?
Great question.
Yes.
I would say
Chocolate?
Yeah, right.
If you would like chocolate, tell us. And
Yeah,
then we'll
bring it up.
Yeah, we have expense accounts for that kind of thing.
But I know that because really, relationships with every individual person is different, and so you feel comfortable with some more than others. But really see your vendors as your allies, and see them as friends. Might be kind of we're here to help you kind of thing, help us help you. We really
friendly resource.
Exactly. We really can be a good resource, just like you can be a good resource for us. I really see it as a two-way street. It's not you have to buy something from a vendor, so just pick one. And you really want to have a relationship with someone, be able to trust them, know that they do have your back and are interested in what you have to say. So I'd say, I know sales calls sometimes have a stigma attached to them, but welcome your vendor into your library and then help them understand how you work and what they do, what you do, so that they can help better tailor their services and the products that you get from them, because I think it can really be a mutually beneficial relationship.
I'm too new at SkyRiver now to really know how this works, but when I was working for Gale, it was pretty consistent that the libraries that worked very closely with me and with other vendors tended to be the most successful libraries, the ones that got awards. And I'm not saying that it's just because they work with vendors, but librarians were interested in information and gathering information. And when you're trying to build your library and put books into it, or databases, or cataloging, or reservation software, you need to have the right information before you make that decision. And we're here to provide that to you. And we understand that you're talking to other vendors. You're never going to offend us, by asking for more information, or by taking a break and saying, I need to think about this some more. Let us be that resource for you so that you can provide the best resources on your end. And yeah, we're friendly, we're here because we like what you do and we want to help it.
And if I may just real quick, realize as a librarian that you have options. There are lots of other vendors that provide similar resources or similar services, and as a librarian, do your due diligence in really researching what's available to you and what's out there. And don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to negotiate. I think that's one of the things that I see a lot with libraries that are like, oh, well, they don't feel comfortable with the business side of things. And so I think a good vendor relationship can often kind of help you navigate that and really meet your needs much more successfully than you think you might be able to.
If you just order from the catalog, you're paying full price.
Yeah.
If you have a relationship with a vendor, you're gonna get discounts of something. We'll tell you when the sale's coming. We'll know that you're interested in this particular product and there's a special going on it. You're gonna save money, you're gonna save time, you're gonna get stuff that you wouldn't have heard of if you've got a relationship with a vendor.
I would second the idea of being very direct. I think that in the world of libraries, we are genuinely nice people, and so we don't want to hurt feelings, but you're not hurting feelings by saying, you know, I'm looking at a bunch of different options for events management, and you're one option of many, so just be prepared that this might take me 3 to 4 months to decide, and I may or may not choose you, and by the way, I might need a discount. And if you just lay it all out, you're not going to hurt our feelings, because we've heard it all.
We can help meet your needs better when we know what you're doing and what you're dealing with.
Right, exactly. And I think the other part of that too is I think people come to the vendor hall, the exhibitor hall, sometimes very defensive and with their guard up, and I don't blame them. I mean, I've been there where I've walked down the aisle and I've had people like trying to, you know, like they come out and they try to grab you, right? But for every one of those people that's there at the exhibitor hall, there's a group of really nice folks that really, as you said, just genuinely want to help. And I think that the last component is that if you already have a vendor's product, maintain a relationship with them. Don't just get the product and then go on and just use it. Contact them if you're having problems. If something's not right, if you bought one thing and you're getting something else and it's not what you wanted, come back to the vendor, or if you see a need for a feature, come back to the vendor and say, can you add this feature? Because that really helps us. I mean, we didn't know there was a bug in our product until somebody came up to us at a show and said, we found a bug. Well, when did you find it? Last year. So, you know, being vocal, I mean, that's your money, you know, just, and we understand that. We know who's paying our paycheck, and you make that decision and we want to make you happy, so.
I have another question, and the question is, are there many opportunities for MLIS students in product development? And maybe consider that, or more broadly, are there opportunities for students to work in your organization, either part-time or full-time?
It's a little tricky on our side of things, just we have our headquartered in Birmingham, Alabama, and then we also have our other division headquartered up in Ipswich, Massachusetts. So just from a sheer geographical standpoint, I go to the office maybe every other year, so I don't even get to, but that's a really interesting point. I think, I just don't know how that would logistically work.
Yeah, I don't know of any library vendors in Kentucky.
Not anymore.
Well, actually,
she's revised her question.
Oh, okay.
She should have said graduates versus students.
Oh, okay.
So specifically, graduates getting positions specifically in product development.
I would think yes. Just send your resume, look at the job postings. There's, especially for some of the bigger companies. And then there's other companies too that aren't vendors, like Google. A lot of Google positions have an MLS as either preferred or required because they do so much with data and information. So, you know, we wouldn't think of it as a library company, but you're definitely going to use your resources, your skills that you picked up. I would recommend just put in MLS, go to Indeed.com and type in library and see what happens.
Go to what?
Indeed.com.
And
It's
what is
a aggregator of job postings. So they'll pull a Monster, Career Builder, and they'll actually go out to individual companies and pull. I worked for Monster for 8 months, so a little side gig outside the library world, but Indeed.com is a good one. And then of course all the library boards, but you'll find non-library things that actually understand and appreciate library things when you go outside of that.
Is that INDEED?
Indeed it is.
Indeed it is. Other questions? Well, ladies, thank you all very much for coming down here.
Thanks for having
I
us.
think this is a very good conversation, and thank you very much, and very glad to have you all.
Thanks